Hey, hello everyone. This is Nicholas Hall, founder of Graham's Foundation. I'm here today with Tracy Pella, founder of Connected Forever. And also is the name of the consulting organization Rooted?
Yep, rooted life empowerment.
Rooted Life Empowerment. So Tracy, welcome.
Thank
Great to
you.
see you again.
You as
And
well.
yeah, and as folks know that have been listening to our series, I'm having conversations with neonatologists and their NICU therapists and nurses, folks from industry, but also preemie parents like myself that have been through their own unique lived experience and through that have created some expression in the world. And so I wanted to take the chance, I want to take the opportunity to talk to Tracy, talk to her more about her experience, your organization, and also how your professional background, combined with your lived experience, kind of, how that's informing what you're up to today. So again, Tracy, welcome.
Thank you. Looking forward to being here with you, Nicholas.
Absolutely. So why don't, for the folks that are listening, if you could just share a little bit more about your journey and how we got on to be this into this special community that I say no one ever, we don't necessarily choose to join, but once we're here, we've made a real difference in the world. So,
Right. Yeah. So I think that explains our journey exactly, Nicholas. This was a club, a group. I never really realized the extent it would have on our life. But prematurity introduced itself a little over 14 years ago to us. We were elated to find out we were having identical twin boys. And with that came, the immediate dreams, hope. We are a rural family. We farm, so we have row crops and cattle. And already instantly, we could see our lives with our twin boys, years down the road farming. And that really all changed for us. I went to a routine appointment with our MFM, maternal fetal medicine doctor, and we're told that one of our twins had a low heartbeat. And so we were really given the opportunity if, I think his exact words were, if you want both of your boys to have a chance to live, we have to deliver immediately. So within minutes, we were delivering our boys at 23 weeks and 4 days.
wow. And this was you're in
Mhm.
rural Nebraska.
Yep.
And what was the closest? With that, with that notice, did you feel like you were had at least had an opportunity to get to the location that you felt was best for your twin boys?
Yeah. Luckily, we were actually in the medical plaza of the hospital that we were set to deliver in.
Oh
So,
wow, okay. And that
yeah.
was in Omaha, or where were you?
Lincoln.
In
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. So about an hour, about 50 minutes to an hour from our home at that time.
Okay. And now you founded Connected Forever, you said 14 years ago,
Yep.
but what was the birth date of your twins?
Um, so we founded Connected Forever a little over 11 years ago, and our boys
Okay,
were born a little over 14 years ago. So our boys were born in
gotcha.
2011.
Okay.
Yep.
So, our twins were 2006.
Mm.
So, as many folks, as many parents know, um, they continue to, make improvements in what they're able to do. Um, we were 25 weekers and you are 23 and
4.
4.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's incredibly early. Was there anything? It sounds like there wasn't anything. You said it was a routine appointment. You were being seen by that specialist probably because you were carrying twins,
Yep. Yep. Because
right?
that.
So
Yep.
automatic qualification to get the additional consultation, but there wasn't anything before that appointment that gave you.
Nope.
And were there any, I'm curious, were there any other options presented?
At that time, no. When I look back, it was probably our 18-ish week appointment with our MFM. He said, there was a tiny difference in their weight, but nothing concerning.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. And so when I went in for that ultrasound, our son Cohen, at that now fighting later, the son that we named
yeah,
Cohen, yeah, he was our twin that had the low heartbeat. So that was really the only option that they were given that they felt like that i- if we waited longer, that we wouldn't know the outcome of it. So we literally ran across the hospital at that time, and actually my husband wasn't even at that appointment with me. um,
yeah.
so yeah, so it all happened so quickly.
Hmm. 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 I can't imagine I mean, I can. I know.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, your life changes forever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you guys made the choice, the decision to deliver
Yep.
that
um
time.
Yep, so we did deliver, and both of our boys were born alive. They tried to stabilize Cohen, and he weighed 15.4 ounces, and were never able to stabilize him. And so he did pass away the day that they were born. Uh,
Yeah,
and then Cohen or Cooper, excuse me, Cooper weighed 14.8 ounces. They were actually able to intubate him, stabilize him, and yeah, not to, ruin the ending, but he's 14 and a half now, or almost 14 and a half. So he spent 134 days in that NICU.
I have to say it's it's quite that's quite remarkable. It's not really when I think about how early, and I know that we males have the poorest outcomes percentage wise. Um, it's actually not it's not like a terribly long stay,
Right.
really. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, in retrospect, I'm sure it is, but again, if you're just like looking at the typical normal data for how early they were, it's not that far beyond the due date.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think their due date was September 24th, and we were out of the NICU by mid-October. So,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, just like you said, looking back at his stay, I mean, uneventful isn't the right term because we had
Yeah.
several surgeries, but in
Yeah.
retrospect, what it really could have been, and actually even after the NICU, when we transitioned home, I think, from what the possibilities could have been to what we faced, I think that there were just a lot of kind of blessings and things along the way for us too.
Yeah, I've always have said many times that prematurity is not a diagnosis, it's an occurrence.
Mhm.
And so only time tells
Right,
what this myriad of possibilities could be, because when our babies are born that early, they are not a baby.
right,
They are a fetus. I mean, it's just not a fully formed human being yet. And so it has to have all this development outside of where, in a place where it was not originally intended. Um, and as we know, the transition home, like on the one hand, oh, great, congratulations, and it's like, oh, crap, this is all my responsibility now. I can't, like, where's the hotline to, I don't know if you had like a follow-up clinic or what you had, if you had continued connection with your neonatal intensive care unit, maybe maybe you were fortunate that you did. We didn't, so we were just sort of, in the general population, and we had time to find a pediatrician for our daughter, but uh yeah, it was just there we were. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and neither my husband or I come from a medical background, and so I think part of it too was the NICU felt like the safe place for us, like, uh,
Yeah.
but all
They're looking after our child.
right, yeah,
Like we can't screw, I mean,
right,
he's in safe
right.
hands, right?
Yeah, and then for us to go home to a rural location, was a little bit more difficult as well. He came home on oxygen, came home on
Yeah.
several medications, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I felt like
I know that drill. And like it's Friday night. What is it, Apria or whatever, the tank's low. Where
right,
are you? You know,
yep,
What? And
yeah,
obviously, oxygen there. I mean, 99.9% of their patients are elderly folks, right? And so we're an anomaly for
yep,
sure. Um, yeah.
yep. Yeah. And we came home during the kind of the start of RSV flu season as well. So that presented I would say, continued challenges knowing, that we needed to be in isolation, that,
Yeah.
not knowing what his lungs would be able to handle if he was to get sick. So I
Right.
think, when I look back at that time, I mean, I feel like I kind of went through that time maybe a little numb, and almost dissociated, not really, just so scared because also at the same time, really dealing with the grief of going home meant so many it made it feel more real, right? Like we had those hopes and dreams of having twin boys and we losing Cohen at the beginning of the journey, it felt like going home with one baby really made that more real. So going
Mm.
home and then to isolation also made it even more difficult to really be isolated from, you know, honestly, even some of our family, our
Yeah.
friends, being able to take him places, too.
Now, at your remind me again, your tell those listening, your mental health counselor, therapist. What's your
Yeah, so I have a background I have my master's of arts in counseling and I'm a mental health therapist, and then also an education specialist in school psychology. So at the time I had the boys, I was just finishing up my school psychology degree.
so you got this. I mean, you've done all the study, right?
Yeah, right.
You know how to
Yeah.
s- you know how to self-diagnose.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's all the things you teach, it's all the things you learn, but when it's your own life, it just has a completely different meaning and you really see it from a different side. I say a lot, I see it from the other side of the table.
Yeah.
When you start to experience those things for yourself.
In all seriousness, did your background in just having just the awareness of um, did it help in terms of um, did you encourage yourself to seek out the support or therapies or just having a sense of like had the same experience of losing Graham, and then we were there in the NICU with him for 45 days. So we had some he never breathed on his own, right? So it's not like we weren't super hopeful, but we
Right,
had given up hope. But we
right,
also were keenly aware of how dire the situation was. But then, here today, and you have to go back to the hospital, right? With not two but one, and
right.
it's a real challenge to be able to grieve the loss. How do you grieve and put your energy and hope into your son, or in our case, our daughter.
Um, I think for me, it took me a while. I actually at that time, I really what I sought out the most was I needed someone else that had experienced it. I needed someone else that had, because I felt so many times that, people were supportive. We have the most amazing family, friends, our whole community. We're from a small rural community. So
Yeah,
the support I feel like we had and still continue to have years later is incredible, yet
yeah,
it was that, like, that connection with someone that had felt what it was like to have, a micro preemie, but
yeah,
also maybe be experiencing that grief, and I didn't always seek those 2 things that they had to be together, but,
yeah,
and that was I'm gonna age myself a little bit, but that was a time when Facebook really was becoming popular, and so
yeah,
I found a lot of my support on those Facebook groups,
yeah,
uh,
yep,
that's actually how I initially connected with Kira Sorrells was, on a Facebook group, of twinless twin parents, and,
yeah,
so I found myself really kind of seeking out majority of that support
yeah,
versus, like, mental health therapy, that kind of thing. It was like, I had so many, as you know, there's just so many unknowns, and I just wanted someone that had experienced something similar,
yeah.
and I felt, especially those first couple years, that's where I found the most support was, connecting with other parents, and we had initially met through those Facebook groups.
And did that support, I know for for us that our hospital, our neonatal intensive care unit, they didn't have any sort of, formal mentor or parent support, but one of the nurses had developed a relationship with a mother who had gone through a similar experience to us, and had reached out and asked her if she'd be, willing to come in and just sit with us, right? So I do, that's one of those experiences that I remember that made a difference. Um, there wasn't anything, so we were 2006, so that was before Facebook. I did a lot of blog posts, but that
Mhm.
was mostly, that was being read by family and friends. Um, so it was more, congratulations, you're home with your daughter, right? And we were home, and 3 weeks later she needed an emergency shunt, and we were at the children's hospital, and so it was like the journey was far from over in terms of just being nervous about what tomorrow might bring. And so um boy, when I think about it, um we didn't um I had done a fair bit, I guess we both had done a fair bit of sort of personal development training, that I think was really, that frankly was incredibly helpful. That being said, we didn't have a therapist or a counselor, or we didn't have a formal sort of third person helping us to process the loss, and then how it impacts your relationship with your spouse, with your family, because there's going to be, yeah, the questions of, well, they need to strengthen their immune system, and all that good, all that well-intended um, advice, but you're on your own unique path, right? Um, and so, I mean, I want to talk about um, the nonprofit that you started, but I don't connected forever, but I don't want to move from talking about your loss and your son too too quickly. So I
Yes.
just, is there, I guess, was there, in terms of your experience, yeah, so you talked about like the Facebook group that and you were able to connect with other parents there that made a difference. Was there anything else in particular that really made a difference during that time? And, 2020 hindsight being what it is there any advice you would have given yourself at that time, or anything you may have done in it when you're thinking about it would have perhaps been helpful in addition to the support you sought out?
Yeah. Our hospital, I mean, we were really blessed that our hospital did have a parent support group. And so that was helpful. There was actually a couple other micro preemies born at that time at our hospital. So that in-person connection with those parents was helpful as well. But we're also kind of on our same journey. So then when you go home, I feel like we're just surviving, right? And
Yeah.
so um, you know, it's a really great question about what advice would I give myself, and I think, um, I really do think that the support that we had, was great. I think you just there was maybe I maybe hung on to survival a little bit too long. I
Mm,
think that there was always that grief. There was always that kind of thought in the back of my head of, what happens if we lose Cooper too. And so I think that just plays into so much. And there were just so many unknowns about his development and, that, the yes, the mental health part, but knowing childhood development and all of those things, I think I was always really kind of hard on myself too, which is a little bit my personality of like, are we doing enough? Are we doing all the things? And so sometimes,
mm,
looking back, I do feel like both my husband Jesse and I really, I mean, we leaned on our support. We did all of that. But probably it would be just to give myself a little more grace. A little bit more, like, it's always that I wish I could have seen the 8 ball and, you are going to survive this. Things will look different, um, but I think having that support was helpful, but probably giving myself just a little bit more grace through that,
mm.
maybe the thing I would change.
Yeah, we're always a fish in our own water,
Mm,
and
yeah.
without, yeah, without the benefit of someone else being able to, ask a really great question, or yeah, to kind of help us be able to step outside of ourselves, right, and be able to see our situation um, from another point of view. Yeah. Um, what inspired? I guess I guess we know what inspired Connected Forever, but could you share with us a little bit more about why you decided to start an organization, and just its mission and your focus, and yeah, what your
Yeah.
work in the world.
So obviously our experience with our boys and after a few years and when Cooper was maybe a little more stable medically, I did actually seek out some like in-person support groups. And when I looked back, so much of that support I had experienced was again online and coming from a rural community, born and raised in Nebraska. Um, I just really felt that calling that there needed to be more support in Nebraska. And so it was like the spring of 2014. So Cooper wasn't quite 3 yet. And I had kind of my background in the mental health world, school psychology. I had worked in a lot of nonprofits and feel like my calling has really and what serves me is to serve other people. And so that sort of was planted in me to be able to want to do that. And so in that spring we had sort of started the wheels in motion, and then that May some of our dear friends actually lost their full-term son, and really seeing it from the outside and feeling unequipped to give them resources. And we could share our personal experience, we could be there for them, but not just them, but their family, were asking for resources and really feeling like there was a lack of that. And so that's really what catapulted us forward in saying, um, yes, we experienced it. We know other people are experiencing it, but seeing it from some really close friends of ours, that was the time for us to start Connected Forever. So we started Connected Forever in August of 2014 with a mission to support families experiencing pregnancy and infant loss or a NICU stay. And that mission really has stayed throughout, our time with Connected Forever. We support families, through resources, emotional support, and do a lot. Our programming has changed a little bit, but never went away from the mission that we know families need to not feel alone on their journey. And so our support is really focused on families in Nebraska. We have, being a very rural state, we have lots of rural families across our state. So we do try to serve families all across there. So we do have in-person support, we have online support, we provide care packages, mentors. We are bedside in one hospital in the NICU, providing that, peer support that way too.
How many level 3, 4 NICUs are there in the state of Nebraska?
It's a great question off the top of my head. I would say, I mean, there's less than probably 7 or 8 of them. There's less than
Yeah.
10 for sure. So,
Yeah.
like Lincoln is our second largest city and they have two. So,
Gotcha.
mhm.
I think Omaha would, is Omaha the largest city in
Yeah,
Nebraska?
yep. So Omaha's the largest, and yeah. Um, so yeah, I think they have 4 or 5. So yeah.
And then how do you, where is what is the in-person support? When you say the in-person, through the, is that through the specific NICU where you're at the bedside?
Yep, so we do that, and then our, pregnancy and infant loss programming, we do have an in-person support group every month for that
Is
as well.
that at that specific neonatal intensive care
Uh,
unit, or is it in Lincoln or?
it's in Lincoln, yep, we have a physical office location in Lincoln, so it's at that office in Lincoln.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what, from a virtual perspective, is that just for parents that would like support, but they can't physically get to where you are?
Yep. Yep. So we do have an online Zoom support group for NICU families weekly. That one is not in person, it's just online. And then, yeah, so that in person support group is also, we do offer that on for people to Zoom in. And then we do offer peer support in the community. So families can connect that way too. If they're not we don't have mentors all across the state of Nebraska. So if families do want to connect with us, we do offer that more online support if needed too.
And how has the programming, you mentioned it's changed a little bit over the years. How is most of that just with the adoption of technology primarily, or is it also through the changes with the organization itself?
A little bit with the technology and being able to, offer a lot of those support groups. And I think people being more comfortable with technology, Zoom. But also, we've changed some of our programming. When we first started, we really focused on financial assistance as we became established. And then we have really kind of converted more to our main focus being on peer support. Um,
Yeah, I had kind of gone back and forth um, with the, I mean, Grams has always, we've been focused nationwide, but we've always been 100% virtual, right? Never made any attempt to be at the bedside or in a
right.
specific neonatal intensive care unit. Um, we know offering like complementary care packages, like we know there's going to be a percentage of requests that Someone wants something for free and they're requesting it, and that's okay. I'm just sort of like, it's going to be a percentage of that. That's fine. That's on them. That's not on us. Um, the financial stuff, that's really hard to like unless you get like a referral from the hospital and then but then you're dealing with HIPAA and it just I don't know what it was like for you guys, but just when we started to even dip our toe, it just was like the amount of work that it was going to require just to,
Right.
give away nothing but a dollar, right? Versus the effort that it takes to offer peer support. Like it takes less time to connect mentors, but then the difference you actually can make. Um, Not to diminish that the person doesn't need a dollar. I'm using a dollar. I mean, you need 50 or like, who
Right.
knows, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know what your journey was with that, but that's kind of what our journey was.
Yeah. I would say ours is somewhat similar. I think too, we just really found our mission, and like the heart of what we did was always peer support, and that's what we really envisioned bringing to Nebraska families. And so I think that's kind of, as we became more established and built more of those connections, that's really where we went back to, was like that's always been the heart of our mission, and we could really carry that out more and connect more
Yeah.
with families.
And what does the organization look like today? How are you structured and kind of managing things?
Yeah. So I do spend time with Connected Forever, and then we have a NICU coordinator, we have a bereavement coordinator, and then we have an incredible staff member that runs our bereavement support group. So, and then we have social media,
Yeah.
and then actually our focus over the last year has really been to grow our board. So we just added 4 brand new board members a couple months ago. So we're excited to continue to build that foundation and really, move in next in 2026, moving into a new strategic plan and really looking at other ways that we can grow and serve families.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. And if you could, and part of why, one of the reasons why I reached out is saw the kind of the development of your therapy, counseling. You correct me in the right term. Um, but it's the expansion of your practice, and I'm curious, if at all, how it's informed by your lived experience, or is it in any way related to that or the work that you're doing? Just curious myself and an opportunity to share with our community as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I this year I launched Rooted Life Empowerment, really a consulting and speaking firm, with the combination of my lived experience, but also my professional expertise in mental health, education, school psychology. Over the years, in my work with Connected Forever, but also just other connections I've been able to make. In both the education and prematurity grief areas, I've just worked on a lot of projects and felt that I wanted to continue that work. And also, I have seen, so our son Cooper is 14 and he's actually legally blind. And so we still face a lot of obstacles, a lot of appointments, a lot of, unknown things. And so just advocacy in that area is really, again, my heart has always been to serve people. And so um, one of those passions is really to educate and inform healthcare professionals, and how can we equip them when we're working with families going through, difficult times, crises, as well. But also looking back on my, experience and in this the experience with prematurity and grief, but also in this area, but also just in other areas of life, like you said, professional development. That's just something that I really enjoy, but also giving that to others of what does resiliency look like? What does grit look like?
Mm.
Because life is going to give us hard times. And so, how can or, eventually as our firm, expands, how can we support individuals, organizations, healthcare entities, education field, in working both with families, but also just in that personal area as well.
So what is your then could you say what's your target client, target customer? Um, and again, if you're in your, I know as having worked for, in my past life for a big consulting firm for a lot of years,
Right.
it's like, what do they need? Ask them what they need. It's like, okay, do we have anyone can we find someone? But you need to understand what it is
Yeah,
they
right,
need, what they
right.
need. And obviously, you're not trying to solve uh, all their all their needs, but if you had sort of like what are some of the ideal situations where you're like, we this is our fastball, right? This is our sweet spot. This is uh, where we can have the biggest impact.
Yeah. I really think it's those healthcare organizations that are working with families, not necessarily just prematurity or grief, but having hard conversations, communication within the organization. Are we providing families with the resources needed? And so that's as far as like the consulting part, really kind of that area, and then also like the education part of it. Uh,
Educating whom? The staff?
sorry, like education, like the education system. So like
The education
schools.
system.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And is
school.
it, so you would say, is it primarily then a dynamic of a pediatric dynamic where it's parents of children 17 and below, kind of,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So there's that dynamic of parent-child.
Right. Yep. Yeah. For both probably the healthcare area working with pediatrics, but also the education system and pediatrics. And, just really looking and seeing the gaps there of both my experience, again, that lived experience of us navigating that healthcare system and diagnoses and ongoing things that have continued to come up, and also the education system. You know, I think, yes, the mental health background, but I often wonder, like, without my education background, what would my son's journey look like? Knowing those resources and doing that. So how to, yes, support families in doing that, but mainly really how to support staff in doing that. How do we support families? How do we make this a connection, and really growing that together, and really empowering both, staff members and or healthcare workers, to empower them to work, to listen to families, and to come together in that way, because I feel like when we are connected and we truly make that connection, we're serving both the family, but we're also serving healthcare providers, in a way of really being able to support what they envision for their practices as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the statistics, but I've often thought I've, I've thought about with the rates of prematurity being fairly consistent, um, and the survival rates increasing. Um, Neonatal intensive care units um, attempting to save, babies that are born earlier and earlier. It's like you put those numbers all together, and you're like, okay, there are going to be more children entering our education
Right.
system that likely have some sort of special need, just that population alone. And I
Right.
know there's other populations, and those all require individualized education plans, and those, so it's like, so the potential burden to the system is tremendous. And as a parent, like how to advocate and advocate appropriately, and um, it is a it's a unique challenge. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So
I can imagine that, it's important that there are people like yourself that are taking your training, but also your lived experience and trying to bring that to these communities. Because I, I've had the corporate job, and man, you got to check the boxes, and you're trying to. So I mean, there's just so much that we're just trying to like move through stuff, and being able to, you know, enough of the time, take a beat, take a pause, take a breath, be with, actually like take the time to be with these other humans, and what they're, and recognize that, yeah, we're here to talk about this IEP, but this is like, they have this whole, these people, these families have these lives that they're, and what, like when you're sharing about with your son, and what, what the additional needs that he has, that all, yeah, that's all coming to the forefront when you're having your conversations, right? With your doctors, your nurses, your school. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, you know, the hope is that, and then also speaking, just to advocate, to bring awareness, you know, obviously around mental health as well, families that are, enduring these crises or journeys. It's really, how do we support their mental health? And there are so many incredible resources out there. It's, just are we connecting families, or, and how are we all working together? Just again, back to how do we empower them to heal? Um, in really all areas.
Is there anything that you've found that's been really helpful and supportive for you, or those that are close to you, outside of formal therapy, formal counseling, um, knowing that those folks are very busy themselves these days? So, I mean, there is like, if you need professional help, you should seek it out. So I'm not suggesting otherwise, but have there been any practices perhaps that through your journey, or anything that's become a practice for yourself that's just kind of helped you in your day-to-day
Yeah.
life?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, I do morning gratitude. I typically are listening to podcasts, do a lot of like self-help things, books, podcasts, things like that. Also, I needed to get myself physically healthy, both nutrition wise, also, exercise has always been an outlet for me. After I had the boys, actually a couple years later, when we were looking at the possibility of getting pregnant again, I ran a half marathon. It was, just the physical health, but that
Yeah.
helped my mental health so much as well. So, just little things like that have moved me forward. Sleep, everyone always jokes I go to bed early, like, that's what you're not going to probably get a text back from me too late in the evening, because I have definitely prioritized sleep, movement, being outside, yeah, and just the gratitude. I also, again, I think serving other people. So one of my favorite things is just to reach out to other people if they're on my mind, just saying, "Hey, I'm thinking of you." Just those kind of little things and little habits that have changed in my life to really make, I had to go back to making myself a priority so I could show up for my, for my husband, for my family, for those that I served. That really
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah, it's the old cliche, how are you going to love others if you don't love yourself? And how are you going to care for others if you don't care for yourself? But yeah, and it can feel selfish, can feel indulgent. Um, but yeah, if we don't, then it makes it a real challenge to be our full selves and to be able to, really be fully present for the people in our lives and ourselves too. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Tracy, I always like when we kind of get toward the end, I like to say, are there any questions that you would have liked me to have asked that I haven't asked so far? Or, are there any like topics in particular that we didn't get a chance to cover that you'd like to be able to share or talk about?
Not that I can think of. Yeah. I mean, I loved our discussion around, like you said, if you need help, definitely reach out, figuring out what we each need. I think that's one of the biggest things that I have learned on our journey of prematurity and grief and other things I've endured in life is really just, like it looks different for each of us. And so finding those resources and again, finding that connection to heal.
Yeah, I've always said people find our vision at Grams is no parent goes through this journey alone, but how someone finds support, what they find to be of support to them, how they manage and regulate, their emotions and what they need, we are all a unique snowflake, so I don't think that there is a single answer, um, a right answer out there, but that there are organizations and individuals that do want to help and to provide support. And to your point, you said it makes a difference for you to be of service. And so, for those that feel like they could use help, could benefit from a mentor or having another parent to talk about, for you to know that you're actually giving that other person an opportunity to heal, um, as well. So it really is, we really are feeding each other when we're being supported or providing that support. It really is a full circular experience, right? So,
Yeah.
well, thanks, Tracy, for spending a little bit of time with me today. And again, is it connectedheart.org?
It's connected for the number forever.org.
So connected, the number four, ever, EVER.org. And then what about, say the name Rooted,
Life Empowerment.
Rooted Life Empowerment,
And you can find me there at rootedle.com.
rootedle.com. And if they search Tracy Pella, are they going to find Pella Windows or will they find Tracy Pella? Do you sell Pella? Are you also an heiress to the Pella window line?
Whenever anyone asks me that, I always joke. I said, "Well, would I be here or would I be doing this?" Because it's usually something I probably wouldn't be doing if I was an heir to the Pella windows. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Tracy, thanks for spending the time with us today.
Thanks, Nicholas.